That's the necessary detail we have to go through now. It is really my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this evening. Jill Benn is a university librarian at the University of Western Australia, responsible for library service delivery across the UWA campus. Jill is leading the transformation of libraries at UWA, including the establishment of an award-winning 700-seat student collaborative learning space in the Reid Library, and the significant and innovative refurbishment of the J. Robin Warren, formerly the Medical and Dental Library. Jill is focused on client engagement and partnership and a high quality as key strategy for library service development. Jill holds a number of national and international leadership roles, including as Deputy President for the Council of Australian University Librarians and as the Australian representative on the International Association of University Libraries Board. We really are seeing some good CVs tonight, so it is my great pleasure to welcome our guest speaker this evening, Ms. Jill Benn, and I know that her mum will really enjoy this talk.
Thanks everyone, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet tonight, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you tonight. I can't think of a more fitting way to talk about the reinvention and transformation of our libraries at UWA with our former students.
Excuse me, Jill.
Yeah.
Clicker's not working. So
That's all right. Oh.
no, you've got it all there, so go for it.
Cool.
Keep bottom one.
Okay, thank you. So, I was saying, I couldn't think of a more fitting way to discuss with some of our former UWA students who I'm sure have got memorable and perhaps not so memorable experiences of the libraries at UWA. And I say fitting because students really are at the heart of what we're about in the library today. So tonight I aim to give you some insight into libraries, past, present and future, using a range of examples from here at the university. But I want to start by asking you to think about the demise of some institutions which seemed inconceivable. If we think about Kodak, Nokia, the computing company Compaq, and even the video chain Blockbuster, it seemed inconceivable that these organisations would not be successful today. And the thing that these organisations have in common is that they failed to reinvent their products and services and really respond to the technical disruption around them. If you think about the main traditional product or service of a library, the book, libraries have, over the last 20 years, experienced similar technological disruption. While I cannot imagine a day or a library without any books, certainly technology has resulted in the significant decline of print books over time. And if we look at UWA, you can see the use of our print collections at the university has declined really significantly by 70% just in the last 20 years. The number of libraries we have on campus and the staff required to support them has also decreased. Technology really has transformed the information environment and thus the library business. Where once it was possible to visit a library and take in the world's best information, this is now impossible. Apart from the fact that there are just too many books to read, the world's best information, the world that will solve today and tomorrow's global challenges, can be found online in digital format. In an era of fake news and false reporting, finding accurate and authentic sources of information is absolutely critical, and it's something we must foster for all generations, and libraries have a really key and central role to play in this. The rapid rate at which information is published and the sheer amount of it is well, I think, demonstrated by the history of book acquisition at the university. It took 100 years for the university library to acquire 1 million print books. From 1,000 books at the end of 1913, that was the year the Central Library was established, to about a million books 100 years later in 2013. By contrast, it took the university just 6 years to acquire 1 million ebooks. Such is the transformation of digital information. In addition to ebooks, the library now provides access to over 170,000 online journals, comprising millions, if not billions, I did try and calculate, it's sort of impossible, billions of articles. And of the university's expenditure on library information resources, which is around $12 million annually, only 3% of that budget is spent on acquisition of print books. So it's really quite mind-boggling. We have a discovery system called OneSearch. It's sort of like Google, but for quality information. That online service had 4 million searches in 2017. There were 2.6 million downloads of our ebooks. Meanwhile, we did around 100,000 loans from our physical collections. The transformation really is quite surprising. But has this technological disruption and the move away from the book resulted in the demise of libraries in our universities or in our communities more generally? I argue that libraries have and continue to reinvent themselves, becoming much more visible in their communities than they've been before, and that their importance in the technological era is increasing, not decreasing. And libraries across the globe are transforming their services and products while maintaining their core service and information-based values. This reinvention comes through an increase on the emphasis of the importance of library as a place for people. It's true, libraries have always served an important place. We think back to the world's first library, the Library of Alexandria. It was also about people. But the emphasis in those libraries has been on information first. That's what a library was for. And then on the people second. And I would argue that this has now reversed. Technological change in libraries is enabling what were information repositories to become really high quality research and learning facilities. And to illustrate this reinvention, I want to talk about the refurbishment of the Reed Library ground floor in 2016. The Reed Library holds a really special place on campus, and it's got a long and important history. Originally, the northern end of the administration building was purpose-built to house the first main library of the university. But during the 1930s, the number of books that the library had grew rapidly, and discussions began about the need for a new, larger library. By 1960, the library was so crowded that the Undercroft under Winthrop Hall, which previously had been open, was actually enclosed. And it was done to house overflowing collections and students. And it wasn't long until that filled up as well. By 1960, the library was so crowded, sorry, I've talked about that already, after much planning and anticipation, of course, and importantly, the ability to raise the funds required, the Reed Library building got underway, and after 2 years and a visit from Queen Elizabeth II, the Reed Library, which was named after the Chancellor of the time, opened in 1964. And the Reed Libraries played a really important role to students and provided access to knowledge for many people since then. The Reed Library turned 50 years old in 2014, and to coincide with this, the university allocated funding, which combined with a number of generous alumni donations, enabled a significant refurbishment project to commence. The goal was to provide a space that was innovative and interesting, while at the same time comfortable and inviting. A space that said to our students, "We value you. We want you to be here on campus," and a space that could be used in new and innovative ways. But how does one preserve the iconic history of such an important building on campus but still ensure a future focus. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to visit, and I really encourage you to do so, I'm going to show you some photos of the Reid Library now. The ground floor consists of 700 seats for collaboration and learning. A major feature, which is really symbolic of the project, is the new entrance. Of course, next to the Guild-run cafe, Quabanarning, and I was quite surprised about the number of coffees sold in one day. The new entrance was a really key point to the building because some of the feedback we'd have had from students, particularly students in minority groups, was that they found the previous entrance really intimidating and they didn't really feel like it was a building for them. So the ground floor entrance, which was very visible, open to all, next to a very busy cafe, was a really key part of the project. The furniture on the floor is arranged in different configurations to cater for different styles of learning. Students have access to a range of technologies, Wi-Fi, power, lockers. The Reid Library is open for long hours, including 24 hours for the busiest part of the semester. And you can see that students work in groups or individually. In the centre of the space is an event space that we call the Circle. And in this space, we've literally held hundreds of student-related events. It's a highly visible space, it's quite innovative, and it enables people to see the learning that's happening across the university. And we also wanted the library to look great from the outside. This was part of the vision of really drawing people into the building, and so there were a lot of upgrades done to the outside as well. The project was a major success. So on a busy day, we'll see 10,000 visits. And that's a lot in comparison to previous figures. So in 2015, we had 800,000 visits to the Reid Library. Last year, we had 1.5 million visits. It's really increased the number of people coming back to the library. We've seen increased student satisfaction through national surveys. And the project has been shortlisted and won national and international awards. And many have asked why the project was so successful. So it was a combination of factors. We had a great local architect, we had a fantastic project team comprising staff from across the university, but the key factor that I'm most proud of is the level of student engagement that we did on the project. Here's some feedback from the Student Guild, which talks about the fact that students were consulted at all levels, given ample opportunity to provide input and insight, and that the open communication and thorough student involvement were driving factors to the successful delivery of this new space. The student input was absolutely critical, and I really think it's one of the reasons why students have really been flocking to the space. And this approach to student engagement is now one that we take on all of our approaches to student-related services. We undertook a similar transformation of our medical and dental library in 2017, renamed the J. Robin Warren Library. And we're hoping to raise funds to similarly transform our law library and indeed the other levels of the Reid Library. Library reinvention demonstrates that we value our students, that we recognise the need to provide them with comfortable, high-quality spaces where they can spend time studying in groups or alone, access the world's best information, and developing the communication, critical thinking, and interpersonal skills that are so critical and sought after in today's job market. Of course, you may be wondering about the physical books, and we did relocate some books to enable the refurbishment of the Reid Library ground floor. The library continues to maintain book collections on site in our libraries that are used, the classics, or where the online format is just not appropriate. Many of our physical collections are now stored in secure and appropriate stacks off campus. These items can be requested online and returned to the campus within 24 to 48 hours. And staff and postgraduate students have access to libraries around the country and indeed around the world, with articles delivered electronically to their desktop where possible. Of course, the library also continues to house special and rare collections. These include the original collections acquired by the university's first librarian, Miss Wood. I'm very proud to say that she was the first Australian female university librarian appointed. Or the rare and special collections collected by my predecessors, somewhat infamous Mr. Jolly, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Arfield. Among these include Albert Facey's manuscripts for the seminal work Fortunate Life, or a set of the beautiful and rare Banks Florilegium, one of only 100 in the world, as well as course of rare and donated items purchased by the Friends of the University Library and through alumni gifts and donations. And I'm really pleased to report that these rare and special collections are getting more use than ever before. There's a lot of interest in these physical books. And one of the reasons is because the Friends of the Library very kindly donated these very secure cabinets where we can have our special and rare collections on display in our very busy and vibrant ground floor. We've also seen a return in the classroom to some of these collections. This is a group of Renaissance architecture students looking at our collections just a month ago. And there's a new Jane Austen unit, and these students are interacting with some of our Jane Austen collections, including some of our first editions. So how does one measure the success of a current or future library? It's clear from the university's archives that the number of physical volumes in a library was the measure up until quite recently. That was reported in a lot of the university's annual reports. But just like the physical book should no longer define the library, the number of print items is not really an appropriate measure. Instead, the use of the library space, the student satisfaction with that space and the library services, the strengths of partnerships that the library has with research and education staff, the ability of our students to locate authoritative information, and the visibility of libraries on committees, both internal to the university and externally, should define the success of a university library. I want to just finish by promoting and thanking the Friends of the Library group. This group was established in 1965 and remains active today. And if you are interested in the library, it's a great way of getting involved. I'd be very happy if you would contact me and I can provide some more details. As the Warden mentioned, we also are hoping to be able to offer a new graduate library membership option from 2019. Recognising that we've moved away from print collections somewhat, this membership will include access to some of the world's best online databases. We've managed to negotiate special arrangements for graduates with a number of publishers. So we'll be providing more information about that through Convocation. So it's a great time to be a librarian, and I'm both proud and privileged to lead the staff who perform excellent work in the UWA libraries. Thank you.
That's wonderful. If you haven't been there, go. It's really worth seeing. And I must reflect a little bit because the Meckering earthquake was 50 years ago, and I was studying on the top floor of the university library on that day, and it was interesting. You're sitting there and suddenly you look along the shelves of bookcases and they start leaving, the books start leaving the bookcases. You realise it's time to get out, and I did. Jill has graciously said she'll accept 2 questions. It's only 2, so it really is first in, best dressed. So do I see a hand or not? She will be part of the panel after. There's a question at the back there. Angela, right, second back row. Oh, Devon's getting there.
Philip, Master's Candidate under examination. I was very pleased to hear that the area in front of the library, which has become a bit of a no man's area just at the moment, has a plan for the future. Could you tell us a little about the future for the main balcony?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's, the main entrance is still a really important historical part of the building. And so that will be restored. So coming up over the summer break, that'll be restored. And the balcony outside the library is going to be upgraded. There's going to be some rectification work. I'm pleased to say that the two most important things to students, or two of the three most important things, Wi-Fi and power, have already been installed there. Of course, coffee not yet, but we're hoping that might happen too. So that will be upgraded over the summer. It'll be a lovely place to sit and look out onto Great Court South.
Okay, another question. Yes? Yeah.
I assume that the reason that this university is
Bit of
called...
microphone. It might be good.
I assume that the reason this is called the University of Western Australia is because it was the only University of Western Australia when it was formed.
Thank you.
We'll take one more. That was very, very short. Is there another question? Ray, yes, down the front here. It's coming.
Thank you. I trust your wonderful speech this evening will also become part of the library archive.
Thank you. I know Maria's here, so she might be thinking that too.
What I would like to do now is thank Jill. It was a wonderful presentation on a very exciting space in the university with a very exciting leadership. So Jill, please accept a couple of tokens of our appreciation. Are you feeling strong?
Someone carry them down the steps for her. There's only one ballot